Okay, so once upon a time, I used to be a tour guide at the house that C.S. Lewis used to live in. The house is called the Kilns because of these two chimneys, also called kilns, very close to the property. Basically, after C.S. Lewis's death, the house came into the ownership of various other people. I think he was living with his brother, and I think his brother continued living in that house, but when his brother passed away, the house eventually was sold, and there were various other owners. And then eventually, in the 90s and the 2000s, the C.S. Lewis Foundation reacquired the house. And basically, based on photographs and let's call it eyewitness reports and all sorts of documentation, etc., and so forth, they reconstructed the house, as best as they could. They also did this thing where, because he lived there for such a long time and with different housemates, his brother, the family of a friend of his who died at war, the two of them went to war together, and they basically made a pact, and the pact was something along the lines of, if the other one dies and the other one survives, the one who survives will take care of the family of the one who died. So he was living there with a lady, I think, called Mrs. Moore, and her daughter, and then eventually I think they moved out, or Mrs. Moore passed away, the daughter got married. Can't remember the specifics. Then C.S. Lewis got married to a woman called Joy, and they lived there together. So the house, the different rooms of the house were redesigned basically in accordance with those different phases. So one phase when it was just him and his brother, I think, and another phase when him, Mrs. Moore and his brother, and then definitely there was a room that was dedicated to the influence of joy in his life and all the rest of it. Don't want to give too much away. It's a really great tour, a really great tour. I suggest you go for it if ever you have the chance. You're in that part of the world. However, with all of this stuff that was done to the house, or has been done to the house, as far as I know, it's still there, to give the house the feeling of authenticity, this imitating of the house the way it was during C.S. Lewis's time. And just for reference, they went as far as coating parts of the ceiling in a yellowish color in the room where he and his brother would smoke a lot. And apparently the smoke would create a yellow tinge on the ceiling. And so they even went as far as recreating that, right? With all of that effort to create that imitation, we were always told to highlight a doorknob in the house, because the understanding is that the doorknob goes back to the time of C.S. Lewis. So after his death and the change of ownership and blah, 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 that doorknob apparently never changed. So with all this imitation, in order to make the guest feel like they're in the world of C.S. Lewis, you have this one little spot of authenticity. And that got me thinking about AI art and AI music. Why? Because AI music or art is an imitation. It's taking all the data that we have of things created by human beings with human intelligence, and is creating a similar-ish kind of thing based on pattern recognition across that very large data set that exists, I guess, in all the data centers or in the cloud and the internet. Maybe some people might get into a debate about whether or not AI's creations are legitimately AIs, but fundamentally what's going on is that you have a machine that can pattern recognize, and the machine is just recreating based on pattern. It's not doing the same thing. For example, when Metro Booming makes beats, AI Suno is not doing the same thing that Metro Booming is doing, even though the result sounds similar. It's also important to note that the beat maker needs to exist before the AI platform can imitate it. That's why there's this whole thing that the AI needs to be trained and so on and so forth. I wonder if AI could create or imitate properly, for example, the music of John Cage, because it's a very experimental kind of music, and to the point where some of it is even just silence and action on the stage, opening and closing the piano lid. As a composer or a creator, an artist, his work is so varied that you could maybe even say that whatever patterns are there, they're so finely defined, so esoterically defined, I guess is the word, that I think it would be difficult to say, oh, these are the aspects of John Cage's work, and here's a sound file that is John Cage's work. But I mean, some of his work was specifically, environmental. You had to be in a specific space. Some of his work is, I think there's a piece where he plays. Some guys will slag me off for this, not knowing the actual piece name and when it was composed, if composing is what you call it, but people are playing chess, and based on the chess moves, different sounds happen. It's like, can AI recreate that? I guess it can simulate a chess match, and then but then again, that's just the John Cage piece. You see, the piece is the setup. I don't know. We'll say, like, given enough time, AI can do anything, but the point there is that there is still something different when John Cage writes that chessboard piece that AI is not doing, right? In fact, at some deeper level, AI isn't doing anything. And we can discuss that another time. A quick philosophy lesson. There's a general distinction in reality between two different kinds of things. The things that we find here, you might call them God-made or natural, and the things that we as human beings have made, or you might call them man-made or artificial. AI is now, I guess, that point about it not doing anything aside, is now giving us a new category, what you might call machine-made. And machine-made belongs within the world of the artificial because machines were made by us. If you say ascribe to the religious idea, God made nature and we are part of natural things, and we are the kinds of natural things that can make other things, and then we then have made something else that can make its own things. So it's kind of like this, stepping down the ladder, so to speak. But AI's beats or music or whatever is machine-made versus ours, which is man-made or human-made, versus, say, birdsong. What's happening with the birds? If that is even music, and that's another discussion. And I feel like what this tour is pointing out is that there is a distinction between the imitation and the real. The stuff in the house that was made to look like when C.S. Lewis lived there, and this one thing in the house that was there when C.S. Lewis lived there. Right? The simulacra, or the imitation, and the authentic, the real. And I want to just read this thing I wrote in preparing for this video. And it goes like this. There is a danger in society today of not distinguishing, as I was trained to do in this tour, between the simulacra, the imitation, and the authentic. Right? That we become so desensitized and bereft of awareness of feeling, or the feeling of the real, that the difference between the authentic and an imitation fades into irrelevance. And perhaps one of the reasons for this is because as it fades into irrelevance, I pursue yet more dopamine. And I think of that in relation to the question of art and AI created music. When a company wants music for its brand, and unless it's willing to pay a lot of money for a composer like myself to create that unique brand, it will likely turn to AI. Eventually it'll turn to AI, because you just need background music for your corporate training video. You don't need the music of Philip Glass, you know. But when you're listening to a Taylor Swift song and you are resonating with those lyrics, thinking, oh my gosh, she went through what I am going through now, and she spelt it out for me, which is helping me process it. AI can create an imitation of that. And that's the problem. AI can maybe even give you a sense of, oh, wow, AI went through whatever this thing is, or AI is perfectly describing what this thing is and is helping me emotionally process it. But there's a certain kind of distinction and personal touch with the idea that whoever the songwriter is, most of the time with Taylor Swift, it's her, that person went through that thing, right? Those descriptions of that kind of experience, of that pain, of betrayal or whatever, it's more that I'm connecting with than just the experience of connection. No? I mean, because if not, then, wow, I don't know, I guess everyone has to answer for themselves. Is that personal touch unnecessary? Did it not matter that the door handle, that one door handle, that dates back to C.S. Lewis's time, I forgot how I phrased that in the beginning. The point is, does that little speck of authenticity in that tour not matter? I would suggest that it does. And that's the thing I guess I want to say about AI music, is that I feel like ultimately it plays a role in society. I described a particular kind of use case, which, fine. I guess a lot of musicians or people who put libraries together might lose out on that. But maybe that's not so big a deal. I think the biggest problem is that we lose the value of the kind of music that comes from human expression coming from human experience, and the ability to connect across generations, across cultures, across space, across different peoples in different parts of the world. I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought a bit. But the point is, I would like to propose that personal touch, that something human, is actually a good thing. In this case, artificial is a good thing, because now finally artificial can stand as the natural to something else, this machine made. And with that, I will fully admit that maybe I might be wrong, but you tell me in the comments if at all you happen to be watching.